Okay, so now that you've got the unit circle done and filled in, let's solve some problems here, okay? So we're going to start with these easy ones. This is worksheet 8-1D, which is what I'm going to focus most of my time on. I am going to go back and do 8-1B as well, but I'm going to cover all the types of problems that you're going to have. And as I mentioned earlier, you can always check 99% of the problems, particularly the ones I didn't do. You can check them by simply putting the answer in your calculator that you get and making sure you get the decimal version of what you're looking for, right? So for example, we'll do this one right here, sine of 120. So to do sine of 120, we're going to go to the unit circle, and remember that sine is the y value. So we're going to look up at the 120 dot, the dot that the radius forms a 120 degree angle with the x-axis, and we're going to look up the y value. Okay, very easy. So let's go back to our unit circle. Sorry, 120. So we're going to go to 120. So we go starting at 0. We go around the circle. Now you don't have to do this every time, but just to show you that we're doing this, we're going around the circle counterclockwise until we hit 120. And we're looking for the y value, right? So there's the answer, radical 3/2. Very easy, right? So all these part ones, we did these for a couple of days. Radical 3/2 is very easy. Okay, now how do you check that? If I'm not going to go over all the problems from the other worksheet, how would you check your answer? Go to your calculator, press sine of 120, make sure you're in degrees, of course, and you should get the decimal version of radical 3/2. Now, in case you forgot, it's all in the original first sheet, 8.1-A or 8.1A. Has all this information. We know that radical 3/2 is about 0.866. So when you press sine of 120 in your calculator, if you get 0.866, that means radical 3/2 is the correct answer. All right, and you can put radical 3/2 in your calculator and you'll notice you get a 0.866. Very easy to check most of the problems, particularly all the ones I'm not covering. You can check all the problems using your calculator to make sure you get the right answer. Okay, cosine of 300. Cosine is the x value. We go to the 300 dot. We go to the 300 dot. Here it is. By the way, there's a typo in here. I did fix it, I think, in the first video. But I didn't fix it here, so it's going to be 225. But I did put a little note in the first video about that. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're at 300, and we're looking for cosine. So cosine is the x value here, 1/2. Okay, you put that in your calculator, cosine of 300, you'll get 0.5. You know you have the right answer. Sine of 315, we go to the 315 dot. Here it is, right here. We look at the y value, minus radical 2/2. Done. Okay. I can't stress how easy this is once you've filled in the unit circle correctly. And of course, you know, this is a duplicate problem, you don't have to do this one. You know to go around counterclockwise, okay? Now, speaking of counterclockwise, or clockwise, this is -60. So anytime you have to take the tangent or sine or cosine of a negative number, we're going to go that many degrees in the opposite direction, which is clockwise, okay? So we're going to go -60, and we're going to look at the slope. Tangent is the slope, right? That's the last number next to the parentheses. Okay, so we're going to go to -60. So let me just undo our work here. Whoops, because I can't. I do want to get rid of that, okay? So we're going to go clockwise, excuse me, counter to the direction we normally go. We normally go this way. That's how we measure angles. We are going to go this way, and it's -60, right? So we end up here. That's 60 away, because this would be 90 away, right? So it's 60 away. So again, -60 means to go 60 degrees, or 2/3 of the way to the next 90 degree dot, or actually -90, I should say, right? And we call this coterminal, by the way, right? So -60 degrees is coterminal. That's just a new phrase for my students. Coterminal with 300 degrees, okay? -90 is coterminal to 270. So coterminal just means it ends at the same spot. If you go -60 this way, or if you go 300 this way, it ends up at the same spot. That's what coterminal means, same ending. All right, and we're looking for tangent. There it is. The slope is negative radical 3. If you put that in your calculator, you should get -1.7 around, approximately. Okay, sine of -135. So the bigger numbers are a little bit harder in the negative direction, but just go slowly, right? -135, the y value. Okay, negative 135. So you're going to start here. We're going to go around and we're going to pass negative 60 and we're going to get all the way to negative 90. And we're going to ask ourselves, all right, we went negative 90. How much more do I have to go to get to negative 135? Well, it's 45 more, right? Negative 90 and negative 45 is negative 135. So it's 45 more. So on the circle, you know 45 is halfway to the next quarter, right? To this 180 here. So if we're at negative 90, negative 45 more will put me 45 degrees away from that, which is right here. Okay, and remember they asked me for the sine, that's the y value. So the y value at this dot is negative radical 2 over 2. Of course, cosine would have had the same answer. Okay, these problems here, we're just going to add. All we're going to do is just add two numbers, right? So we're going to go look up the cosine of 90. By now you know how to do these, so I'm just going to write the answers. Cosine of 90, of course, is 0. And the tangent of 225, just go back to our unit circle, 225, that's this point here. The tangent is the slope of 1. So it's 0 plus 1 equals 1. Pretty easy, okay? All right, now this one, if you didn't try it, so let me give you a couple of hints, right? I'm going to give you hints sometimes, then you can pause the video and try it. Tell me what the tangent of 30 is, okay, which you know how to do, and put it into this equation. Okay, and then try to square both answers and add them together. See if you can do that. So pause the video and do that. Okay, so the tangent of 30, hopefully you looked it up, is radical 3 over 3. And the cosine of 30 is radical 3 over 2. I just went to 30-degree mark and I looked at the slope and I looked for the x value, right? Okay, now Mr. Campbell's taught me whenever I need to square something and it's complicated, I just simply write it twice, multiply it by itself, right? Okay, and this is radical 9 at the numerator. Of course, that's just 3. And 3 times 3 is 9, right? Be careful. A lot of people, sometimes they just leave it as 3 or they make this 6. It's 3 times 3, 9. Okay. And then the other one, radical 3 over 2 times radical 3 over 2, right, is equal to, again, 3 at the top and 4 at the bottom. So this is really 3/9. Now, actually, let's reduce 3/9, right? We should have saved ourselves a lot of hassle and go like this, right? So really, instead of 3/9, we're going to write 1/3 plus 3/4. Okay, how do we add 1/3 and 3/4? We do a common denominator, right? So the common denominator is 12. So multiply top and bottom by 4. I get 4/12. That's this middle school math. Hopefully you got this down already. And 9/12. Multiply top and bottom by 3. And that equals 13/12. You can leave it improper if you'd like. You can also do 1 and 1/12. It's fine. But we're going to leave things generally improper. It's usually what we like to do. Okay, so 13 over 12. Okay, let's go on to the next section. Okay, 9. If an angle, now theta, we use these different fonts, so you're going to see they look different. This, I think, like in some of my fonts, it looks like this. Sometimes it just looks like a circle with a line through it. Whatever, right? This is theta. It comes in, depends on the font we're using or the font we take the problems from. It's going to look a little different, but that's theta, right? So if theta is an angle in the standard position and its terminal side passes through the point here on the unit circle, then what's the possible value for theta? So they're just basically saying, look for this point on the unit circle. Okay, so we're going to go left 1/2 and down radical 3 over 2, and tell me what angle of these four choices is going to match that, right? So negative 1/2, negative radical 3 over 2. Okay, so start here, negative 1/2 here, and then down negative radical 3 over 2, right? So it's right here. There it is. See it? Negative 1/2, comma, negative radical 3 over 2, and the answer is this dot, and that dot is 240. Oops. Let me just delete this extra page, and that dot is 240, answer number 3. Okay, which expression has the greatest value? Okay, well, you can look all these up, and I know you know how to do that. So this one is radical 3 over 2. This one is 1/2. This one is, I believe, radical 3. Look it up, tangent of 240. And this one, and I stop and I say, wait a minute. This is where we really think, right? I mean, I can look this one up. It's not hard to do, but this is 0.866, right? This is 0.866. This is 0.5, okay? But this is 1.7. And I really don't care about this one. Actually, I don't care about any of these because we learned today that sine and cosine, they never get higher than 1 and they never get higher than -1. Now, I know some of you are saying, wait a minute, it's 315. That's not the cosine. I'm talking about the cosine of something, no matter what you plug in here, will give you a number that's like 0.8 or 0.7 or 0.5 or 0.1 or 1 or 0 or -1, but never bigger than 1 and never less than -1. So this has to be the biggest number very easily. Okay, 11, the value of the tangent of 315 is the same as the value of what? So we're just going to look all 5 of these up, right? We'll start with tangent of 315. So we go to the 315 dot, which is right here, and we look at the slope, which is right here, -1. So basically, they're really asking you to say which of these equals -1. Okay? Well, cosine of 0 we know is 1, sine of 90 is 1, sine of 180 is 0. And it turns out that this tangent of 135, let's take a look at it. Here's 135. There's the tangent, the slope, and it's -1. Okay, good. So that matches. Okay, find the expression tangent of 180 has the same value as. So find which of these expressions is the same as tangent of 180. Well, the tangent of 180 is 0, right? The slope of a horizontal line is 0. So which of these has 0? Well, this is undefined. It can't be that one. This is -1. This is -1. So this must be the answer, and it is. That's also equal to 0. Okay, evaluate. Now, there's a problem here. The problem was written incorrectly. This should have a times here, not a plus, okay? So it's this squared times this plus this times this. And it works the same way as we did on the other problem. So if you followed my other problem, I would highly recommend you pause the video and you do this problem, okay? And you can see how I'm setting it up, if that helps you. So I would pause now, do the problem, and then follow my work. Okay, so the cosine of 315, right? Let's go to our unit circle. The cosine of 315 is the x value, radical 2/2. Very easy. And it's going to be squared. Sine of 30, we've done this a million times. That's 1/2. Tangent of 135, we actually just did that one, but we can look it up again. Tangent of 135 is -1. So that's -1. Okay, and the cosine of 180 is also -1. You can look that one up. Okay, so this is pretty much our work. The only thing we have to do is square this. So we're going to come over here and square something by writing it twice, multiplying it by itself. Okay, and that is the square root of 4, which is 2. And 2 times 2 is 4. Of course, this reduces to 1/2. Okay, so basically you get 1/2, because that's this squared, right, times 1/2 plus -1 times -1. Now, I already know that's positive 1, right? So 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4. Notice I write vertically. Notice I bring all my symbols down. -1 times -1 is positive 1. I'm not going to put a plus because that would make it look a little confusing. So the answer is 1 1/4, or if you prefer improper, which we often do, right, 5/4. Okay, that's the answer, which is choice 4. And that's, as I said, improper is a little more common here. So you expect to see either answer. That's the answer you need to find. Okay, 14. If the coordinates of point A are 1, 0, so what does that mean? Go to the unit circle, go to 1, 0. Here it is, 1, 0. And put a letter A here, okay? So we're going to name this point at 0 degrees A. Okay, and it says, and point B, the coordinates of B is minus radical 3/2, positive 1/2. Okay, minus radical 3/2. Just go around the circle till you see minus radical 3/2, positive 1/2. And we're going to call this B. Okay, and this is O. They didn't really tell us that, but that's pretty obvious that it's O, right? They're looking for an angle here. And if you read the problem, they're saying, what is the angle of angle B, BOA, B-O-A, right? Which is basically the angle in here. It's the angle that this radius makes with the x-axis, which of course is 150. How do I know? Well, that's the 150 dot. That's where we get these numbers from. These numbers aren't out of thin air. They are telling us, right, what angle the radius makes with that dot. Okay, that's it. So it's 150. Now, I believe, is that one? I'm sure it's choice here. There it is. Okay. Now this is a tough problem, but very, very doable. Okay. If the sine of theta equals negative radical 2/2, right? So that means there's 2 possible answers for theta. Let's try that, right? So where would the y value, sine is y, be negative radical 2/2? Let's take a look. Negative radical 2 over 2. Well, I can see two places right off the bat. I'm going to go around the circle, look for y values that are negative. They're down here, right? They're always in this quadrant. Sine values are negative, or y values are negative in this quadrant. And there's negative radical 2 over 2, and there's negative radical 2 over 2. Okay, so that gives me two dots. That gives me the 315 and the 225. See, there's two answers to this problem. So far. 315 and 225. Okay, so you say, wow, that's weird. They only give us this one. 215 and 3. Sorry, what was it? It was 315. Yeah, okay, good. So this is wrong. 225 and 315. Okay. All right, good. But there's more stuff. And so, okay, that has to be true. And this has to be true. Tangent of theta equals -1. So we're going to check both of these possible answers and find out which one of those has a slope of -1. Which one has a -1 written next to it. So 225 and 315, right? So this one has a +1, but 315 has a -1. Okay, so we're talking about 315. So we go back here and we're all happy we got the answer of 315, and we start to cry because that's not 315, that's not 315, that's not 315, and that's not 315. Okay, even though we know that's the answer. But this, remember, is what? 45 degrees in the opposite direction. So let's go look in the opposite direction, right? So if I start here, let's get rid of all this that we've already used, right? Okay, we don't need this either. So if I come back here and I go negative 45, in other words, instead of going up to 45 like I normally would, it's negative. So if I go negative 45, I end up here. Oh, okay. Well, 315 and negative 45 are coterminal, right? Meaning they're really the same dot. Negative 45. Okay, so that's the right answer. Okay, and of course you do process of elimination too. But that's the right answer, negative 45. Little tricky problem there, which is why we're going over it. Okay, let's go over these problems here. Most of them didn't print out, but that's okay, right? I'm going to do some of the tougher ones, which are at the bottom anyway, and then I'll make one up here. We'll make one up for this. We'll call it negative radical 3 over 2. Okay, we'll look that one up later. So with the Jeopardy problems here, right, they're just asking you what is theta equal to. So I'm expecting angles, right? 90 degrees or 30 degrees or 330 degrees, whatever, right? We're looking for these angles. So it's Jeopardy. They gave you what the y value, or in this case the x value, or in this case the slope. They said what it's equal to, and you have to find which dot that is, right? We've been doing this, so this shouldn't be any magic here. So problem 29, where is the sine, or the y value, because remember sine is the y value, -1. So we go back to my unit circle, and I look for -1 in the y value, right? I can go all the way around. Here's 1, here's radical 3 over 2, here's radical 2 over 2, but until I get to the bottom, I will only find one dot where the y value is -1. There it is, okay? That dot. So 270 is the answer. Now what's beautiful about these problems, if you're doing them on your own, if you get to one that I didn't get to, what would you do on your calculator to check your work? Well, see if your answer is right. In other words, plug it into this, right? So you're saying sine of some angle should equal -1. All right, well, let's put that angle in. You said it's 270. Let's try it. Put this in your calculator. If you get -1, which you will, then you know you did the problem right. Put a check mark next to it and keep going. So for all the problems I didn't get to on some of the other sheets, even though we did a lot of them in class, it's very simple for you to check your work. Of course, you'll get the decimal version. That's okay. You know the decimal equivalents to each one of the radicals. In this case, of course, it's an integer, not a problem, but you'll need to do that. Okay. 30, sine of theta equals 0. Where is y equal to 0? Go back to our unit circle. Where is y equal to 0? Right here. But it's also equal to 0 right here. All right, so 0 and 180. Okay, and that brings up a little problem, not a problem, but a deficiency here, a mistake by the teachers. That's me, by the way, not anybody else. Which is this direction, these directions, the other sheet has it actually, you'll see, but although it has a typo too, this directions is missing something. And that should be less than, not that angle. So in here, there should be directions that say 0 is less than or equal to theta, which is less than 360. okay? Because as you know, there are many coterminal angles. In other words, you could add 360. Remember that negative 45-degree angle we did a minute ago. So there's actually an infinite number of answers to these questions. So this is usually given. It will be given on the test, and it will be given exactly like this. It will look exactly like this. You're given this restriction saying, listen, only give me values for theta. Only pick numbers to go in here that are equal to 0 and up to but not including 360. Okay, that's very important. That's why there's only 2 answers here instead of, infinite, really. Okay, so within that domain, right, of 0 to 360, where is the x value? Cosine is x, -1. So we go to the x values of all the x values. There's 1. There's -1. And that's it. You can go all the way around the circle. There's 1 here, I know, but that's not the x. That's the y value. See? So, and there's 1 here, but that's not the x, right? That's the slope, right? We're talking about cosine. Cosine only deals with the x value. So the answer is 180, and it's the only one answer, right? So those are the kind of tougher problems because there's only one answer, and it says leave the second blank. So we just leave this blank. Don't put NA or something else. Okay, tangent is slope. So we're looking for a slope that has the word undefined, right? Well, what line has an undefined slope? You better know the answer to that. We've been doing that for so many times since Algebra 1. And of course, it's vertical lines, right? So that radius there, 90 degrees, and this 270, both have undefined slopes. So the answer is 0 and 270. Okay? Okay, let's try this one, and then we'll kind of finish these type of problems. So where is the sine of theta equal to negative radical 3 over 2? So pause the video. Go look up the y values that have negative radical 3 over 2. Put your answer in here, and we'll check it. Okay, so hopefully you got to that. Negative radical 3 over 2 in the y. In the y, where is it? Negative radical 3 over 2 in the y. Well, negative's all down here. See, these quadrants are positive for sine, right? All the y's are positive up here. So it's got to be down here, right? And it said, just double checking it here, negative radical 3 over 2. Okay, so where is it? Negative radical 3 over 2. So it's the height, right? The y value. There it is. This is not it, right? This is not it. It's this one, right? Negative radical 3 over 2, but it's also right here. These are both at the same height, these two dots, right? So my answer is the 240 and the 300, right? Those are the two that have this. So 300 and 240. 300 and 240. 300 and 240. Notice this is not problem 25, right? They didn't print out on my smart notebook here, so I'm just making up a new problem. So just make this like problem 36 or something, okay? We just made this problem up. I'm just using this answer slot. Of course, that's not the question that's here. Okay, last couple quick topics here. One thing that always comes up, you need to know that the tangent, I know I wrote this on the other page, but I'm going to write it again anyway, in terms of sine and cosine is equal to that, okay? And then the other very important one is this one, 34, all right? Which says, what happens when you take the sine of an angle, square it, and then add the cosine of the same angle and square it? What do you get? And you could try many, many, many different things, right? But I'm going to try, and 0 and 180 are the easiest ones, as are 90 and 270, okay? But I'll pretend I didn't try an easy one. I'm going to try sine of 30. So I'm going to put 30 in for theta, okay? Oh, this is cosine, I'm sorry. I'm going to put, let's put cosine of 30, and I'm going to see what happens when I make theta 30. By the way, it works out the same way for every theta, okay? Well, sine of 30 is 1/2, so this is 1/2 squared. And if you look it up in the unit circle, cosine of 30 is radical 3 over 2 squared, okay? Now, 1/2 times 1/2, I know you know is 1/4, that's 7th grade. And this one, we already did in another video, earlier in the video or in the previous, I think in this video earlier. So just look it up. But you can write it twice, work it out. You should get the same answer, of course, which is 3/4. So what is 1/4 and 3/4 equal to? 1. And that's always true. That's always true because if you look at this, it looks very similar to this. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. And if you go to our unit circle, that's what we're doing, right? In our unit circle, we are making triangles, even though we don't always draw them. There's a triangle. Okay, the hypotenuse is 1, so C squared is 1 equals A squared, which is the X value, plus B squared, which is the Y value, right? And of course, sine and cosine are the X and Y values. So that's why this formula It's called the Pythagorean Theorem trig formula. That's kind of slang, but that's what we refer to it as Pythagorean Theorem, because it really is just Pythagorean Theorem where c is 1, that's the radius, and these guys are sine and cosine. Sine of the angle and cosine of the angle, right? X squared and y squared. Okay, that's why do you think this is true? You can just say it's a right triangle or whatever. Okay, and I know there was one other question which we covered in one of the other sheets with somebody said, why is this a ridiculous question? I don't remember which one it is, but you can just write it down. Why would a teacher not ask you this, right? Why? And that's the question the teacher will ask you, right? And we just talked about this a little earlier. Why? No matter what you plug in for theta, you plug in 90, you plug in 180, you plug in 0, you plug in 30, you plug in 60, you plug in 99, you can never get it to equal 2. There is no angle that equals 2. So this is, of course, undefined. The answer is undefined. And the reason is because cosine of theta has to be less than or equal to 1 and greater than or equal to -1. Between -1 and 1. It can never be 2. It can never be higher than this. Okay, that concludes the video, guys. Sorry it was a little late. We had some production problems with the microphones. I had to redo the entire thing twice. Or redo it once, I should say. So that's it. Good luck. See you tomorrow.